Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Silverline's Wednesday Wham, another wondrous journey into the world of the creators from Silverline. And we got a full house tonight. And before we get started, as always, I want to thank Daytona Beach Comic Convention for being our generous sponsor. And I also want to say a big shout out to StreamYard as well, because we're doing great with these guys. This is a wonderful platform. Scott, you want to say hi to folks? Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back, my friend.
It's been a while. Thank you. I am very happy to be back. I was just watching that intro, and my goodness, I think we should rename the show the Wednesday show of attractive people. We're a bunch of good-looking people. Those pictures, so professional and
yeah,
smiling. Dean's old school little Marvel pick, you know.
Dean's looking good, yeah. And Aaron, I wonder, like, you're looking off. I think who you like look like you're laughing. You're gonna kick somebody's butt, right? Like, hey, like I'm gonna that guy.
I was watching somebody compete that probably, okay. And laughing, mocking at their pain,
That's an awesome. So I don't know who put that bumper together, but if it was Roland, I don't know, but it's pretty sweet. So
music.
The just get like, and then it bumps it up another level.
I love it.
I missed last week. Had a little partying to do, and the week before. Oh, was I here the week before? No, the week before.
I think
Yikes!
Here. Yeah, I think so.
Just before because the convention. So I don't know if I didn't get to watch the show last week, but I don't know if there was convention wrap up. But it was a blast, and I'm happy to be back home. But I had a great trip to Florida. Got to see John and Barb down there, and a bunch of other Silverliners, and it was a great time. So yes, for the Daytona Beach Comic Convention, folks, thank you so much for your hospitality and care for us. We were well cared for, and we felt very loved. And thanks everybody out there that came by our table. We had lots of foot traffic, and I'd look over from one end of my end of the table and see Barb chatting all day, and Roland and our end of the table, and even John up there chatting away and trying to draw. Just leave me alone. Let me draw my pictures. He didn't say that at all. He was very polite. It was a great convention.
And then we had Scott every time he had to step away.
Well, I my adoring fans. Yes, I had to.
Were you taking selfies every 5
I did.
minutes?
Well, I
texting.
was texting too, but my kids were bummed that they could not come with me, and they enjoy all the geekery that comes with conventions, as we all do. We relish it. It's what we kind of live for. But the cosplayers cosplay great and awful alike. So I was trying to catch pictures of the good and the
not so recognizable.
And I would ask, and I am old enough to be a creepy old guy. So there'd be kids that I'd be like, "Oh, hey kid, what are you?" I try not to be weird, and they tell me, and I'm still like, I don't know what that is.
I'm the Fox King from that anime thing.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, yeah.
Oh, cool, looks great.
See that? Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there's always interesting people. So I was trying to get some selfies, trying to put some stuff up. I was trying to be professional and try to do the social media for Steam Patriots, but I was also catching people behind me that were looking fantastic. Yeah. So that's where I've been. I'm happy to be back, and
well, we're glad to have you back, and we also appreciate the fact that you finally had your 24th birthday.
24, big 25 next year. It's going to be a big party next year.
Wow. Just add a few to that, and we'll just leave it there, right?
I certainly feel like I need a walker.
You?
Tonight,
We already established, John, that I'm old enough.
I know.
Oh boy, yeah, we're older than we look, kids. But don't let that scare you. We still do cool stuff.
We'll talk about comic books and movies and toys.
Yeah. Absolutely, and sometimes
never
for entertaining. every
Yeah.
now and then. There
Hey,
are
just
flames.
just remember this: Grandma Moses didn't start painting until she was 80. So
I feel better now.
Yeah.
I do. I feel better.
Somebody put, I'm going to butcher it, but they put it in perspective about like Dracula and
Mhm.
Cthulhu.
Mhm.
Yes. So it's
Yeah.
okay if you get started late in life.
What Jack Kirby didn't start till he was like in his 40s.
Yeah.
Nice.
What 42, 43, something like that.
Yeah, that's encouraging.
Colonel
actually.
Sanders was old too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
At
So,
least that's what the picture says.
so Scott, I hear tell that we're going to talk about the creative zone tonight. Is that what you heard? I heard a vicious
I
rumor.
heard somewhere. I heard doo somewhere that was some
think that's
stars
Twilight.
coming
That's
by
Twilight.
and swirling, and we were going to enter the
creative zone.
The creative zone.
I thought it would be interesting to just explore, starting with our illustrious crew here, on how you guys get into the zone to create. Because for a lot of people, it often isn't just the flick of a switch where we can zone into what we're doing and do great work. A lot of times, there are different ways to get into it, whether it's music or reading your favorite comic to sort of preload imagery, or it's different also for writers and artists. So I thought it might be an interesting thing to cover. We've got both here tonight, writers and artists, and then writer-artists.
And writer-artists.
Artists.
Yar. So, well, should we start with intros for those who may be just joining us for the first time? Hard to believe there'd be newbies, but
I hope we're always getting newbies.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we should. I'll start off first since I walked into that. My name's Dean Zachary. I'm a writer creator. I've been in the comic industry since way back in the 90s, pre-internet. So that tells you how old I am. But there was internet, but it was very primitive. And I've worked on everything starting from Malibu Comics through some DC work, and not really Marvel, but Dark Horse and other things. And very happy to be part of the Silverline team, where we're striving to put out the best independent comics out there. So
striving and succeeding.
Yes, we are indeed. Yes, we are. What about you, Scott? Tell us about you and what you do and whatnot.
Well, I am new to the comic book world. I have the title Steam Patriots recently published and out there. So if you've got a copy, thank you. And
he's a comics virgin.
Yeah. It's a new wonderful world for me.
He's got his cherry pop now.
I go, Barb. Oh,
she went there.
She went there.
She went there.
Oh yes, it did happen, and I it was a great experience. So my comic book is out there.
We're going to sail
color
right
my
past
shirt
it, so the FCC doesn't come down. We're going to be fine.
Steam Patriots is my book. I've got my degree in creative writing for entertainment, which is geared toward more of the visual arts industry, which works lovely for creating comic books. And I hope the Steam Patriots world will continue to grow. I had a magazine that's not terribly successful, but we managed to squeeze a comic book into it. The Adventures of Drake Hollander started. Maybe that'll continue. We'll see. We could also talk. Maybe that's another night. The budget that's required for making comic books. So, yeah, that's me. Sorry, that was a really long intro.
Well, I'll bounce it around here. Barb, tell us who you are for the new folks who may just be seeing you for the first time.
Well, I'm Barb Kjellberg, and I have been inking for over 30 years. I started at Malibu, and one of my pencilers was Dean over many pencilers at on the Ultraverse. I also inked Derek Robertson, who's now the creator of The Boys, which that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. From there, I went to Innovation Now, DC, Marvel, Image, Dark Horse, IDW, and I am now here at Silverline. And I late in life, I decided that I wanted to stretch my wings and learn more than inking. So I decided to jump into coloring and writing. So I have my own book now. It's Divinity, and I ink cat and mouse. I am writing, inking, and coloring Divinity and coloring Sirens. And on top of all of that, I'm also the CFO for Silverline. So Silverline keeps me more than busy. I've had other people approach me and say, would you have time to do this? Nope, I am completely busy with Silverline. So
Yes, heavy is the crown,
Yeah.
the queen, right?
She does have to keep rolling in line.
Yeah. Oh man.
Somebody does.
Apparently, there's two people. Apparently, it requires two people to keep rolling in line.
BJ, the CEO, and Barb, the CFO.
CFO, indeed. So, Aaron, what about you? Tell the folks who you are and what you do for Silverline.
I am a penciler, I guess. And
You're not sure.
I a little bit. It's funny. I do inking, penciling, and I'm coloring right now. That's what I'm doing. But yeah, I do. I'm penciler on the upcoming obsoletes, and then I'm doing my own comic Godlings, which I'm finishing up, and I'm doing the final issue soon. I got to thumbnail out that entire issue, so that might be an interesting. I could talk about how I get creatively into that, because I know how I want to do the ending, but I usually have different ways I go about getting my creative juices flowing. Right now, I'm working on the cover for issue 11. That's why I'm coloring stuff like that.
Nice. Nice. And your book, once again, is called
Godlings. Yeah.
Godlings.
My book. Yeah. And then I actually have plans for another comic book I want to do. I don't know, maybe I'll pitch it to Roland or whatever, but I always like ninjas, so I might do something with ninjas.
Yes, do a ninja thing, man. That would be cool. And last but not least, John, the Artistic Viking Martin. Tell us about what you're working on, my friend. I know you're doing a lot of stuff too.
I was going to be okay with not doing an intro since I wasn't part of the whole picture thing at the end.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Oh man, you're part of the club as far as I'm concerned. What you working on?
Well, I'm an inker and whatever else they decided to have me do. I'm currently working on Wolf Hunter, then going back to finish up Friar Rush. Currently working on a cover for Wolf Hunter that I really freaking awesome.
Nice. Nice. Well, I know people out there seen your work, the ones who supported our book so far, and there'll be a lot more of that to come. So,
and then of course I've done some stuff for Upper Deck under the Marvel license and Dynamite.
Nice.
For the sketch cards and stuff. So,
slinging the inks, man. You're a traditional guy though, right? More so than
yeah, pretty much all brush.
That's good. I respect that. I like the traditional art styles. The nice thing about inking digitally, from what I hear, is it's forgiving. So you make a mistake, it's on a layer, you can just kill the layer. So do you have any interest in exploring that or no?
Maybe one day. I really like to feel a paper, but I will say that I found the people who ink the best digitally are the people who figured it out traditionally.
I'm still doing both.
Interesting. Yeah. Barb doing both.
You mean you're inking, or are you still trying to figure it out?
That too.
That too, she says.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some people that have all they do is digital inks, and it doesn't have the same life as it does for somebody like Barb or Tommy or Jonathan Plupton, who can do both.
Yeah, see now, John got to see some of my real pages down at Daytona, so he was able to see real as opposed to digital.
Yeah, and being able to do both, there's still a life to the stroke, even if it's digital.
Yes.
Or if you just do digital, it doesn't have that same life.
It's matching that hand-eye coordination too with the stylus.
Right.
Getting comfortable with that. I'm sure, Barb, I
try to make my digital inking look as close to my physical inking as possible.
Mhm. Mhm.
Would there ever be, that it comes up in my Facebook advertisements or whatever, that device called like Remarkable, I think. I know it's just a notepad, but it has a stylus and has a texture to it. It claims. I've not experienced it. I don't know if anybody's experienced it, but it's supposed to feel like paper. I don't know if it does ink or if you can go between pencil or whatever, but it is a digital screen. I'm interested because I like to type, but I do like to write on paper. The only reason I don't do it as much is because it takes longer, and I have to retype it, and my handwriting's horrible, and sometimes I can't even read my own handwriting. So, and I lose my papers and all that sort of stuff. So having it all in one place, it's easier to edit on the computer. But I do like writing on paper. It slows me down a little. I think I bucked that when I did the NaNoWriMo, because getting in 1,700 words a day, and your paper doesn't count your words. The word processor does. That was a lot easier. Yeah. So, I don't know. I didn't know if anybody had any experience with that device, and it's probably not set up for the kind of inking you would need. But I wonder if there'd ever be any technology that would allow for that texture feedback to ink digitally.
There are settings, not to get too wonky in the tech weeds here, but there are settings on the iPad Pro that will allow the stylus to respond as if it's addressing.
They also make something you could put on the glass.
Yes, they do.
To try to make it mimic paper.
Oh,
yeah. So
that's cool.
I have a protector.
Yes.
Plastic protector over mine.
Yeah. Indeed.
I also find, and again, I'm going to bring up age. It seems I don't like to do this, but I have found that there are days when I'm not as steady as I should be, and that's simply an age factor. And those days I ink digitally because you can turn off your streamline on your digital, and it will take the wobbles out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
you can make it part of your style. That's what Charles Schultz did.
Yeah. I don't want to do that. I'm so anal about my line
smooth
work.
and crisp.
I do. I'm very, very anal about my line works. And there's days when I know that I'm on point, and I'll be, superwoman on the real inks. I shouldn't say real, on the inks over here.
Oh,
you do the fake ink.
Wow, I love seeing the workspace. I know the fans do too. Well, Scott, since you were telling us about writing on paper and all of that, when you begin a project, you're concepting and you're like, okay, I'm sitting down to write, and the family's sort of in the other room, or is there chaos around you? What do you do to create your perfect enclave of creativity? Share with us.
So first, I do want to say, for anyone who's writing, and again, I am no veteran of writing, and I'm still always working on my methods and how I do stuff. But if you need the perfect space for writing, you'll never write. You can't have I need a candle, and I need music, and I need lighting, and I need
the pipe.
Right. Well, the pipe is critical. Yes, I do have that. But you can't get stuck in that. You can't, because then you guys know we're all creative. You'll come up with any excuse to avoid writing, or it's like any distraction, anything shiny, and then and it happens. So that's just another crutch or excuse to say, well, I don't have my apple crisp candle burning, so I can't, or my incense. So, but a quiet space is critical for me. Now, I know some of you have said you like having the TV on or having the radio going or something while you're arting. That's fine. So, but for me, my brain, and I know this is, I don't want to speak in too much general terms, but guy brains are very focused on one thing at a time. Yes, I know. You know what I'm talking about, John. We have to focus on one thing.
No.
Can you be distracted? Really? Because I can't.
I multitask very well.
See, and I don't. So that's me. if I have one person
I
talking
can
to
do
me,
like 2 or 3 conversations at one time.
I can't. Two conversations turns into none conversations. I hear neither of them. I like listen to the middle, and then I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything. So if I have music with words, a lot of times I find that I'm just listening to the words and singing along with my fingers, over the keyboard, not going anywhere. So I do need quiet because it's all up here. I've got to pay attention. So I need quiet. My computer makes it convenient, but a pen and paper is also very sufficient. I like to stand. My back starts to hurt after a while from sitting. I move on my feet. So I put my
sorry.
He's
obsessed today.
Yeah.
Are you a pacer? Are you a pacer?
I do pace when I talk. I pace when I'm on the phone. So I put my computer up on like a milk crate. It's up here because I can't afford a stand-up desk. I can't. So I'm cheap. I stack books in a milk crate up, and it's up at this height, and that helps a lot. When I write, I stole I don't know where I got it from a yard sale, like a wooden lectern, like from a church.
Oh yeah,
and that works really well to write. It's not great for my computer. It's not quite right.
You stole from a church?
I did steal. I don't know where I got it. Yard sale. Churches leave their doors unlocked.
It was a yard sale. That's what it was.
I don't know where I got the lectern, but it is like
Jesus is looking for you.
He's looking for all of us, Aaron.
He is.
So
what's that?
But I was going to ask you just more specifically.
Yep. Sorry.
Do you get to the point where you need music to get you into that mood of like Revolutionary War, which seems to be what the content of what you're writing right now? Is there any kind of music, or do you like, it needs to be quiet?
I don't need it, but I really like it. And music affects me. I really, really like music. I like classical music a lot. Or instrumental music that will give me. I feel like I often think of movie scenes or comic book scenes. The music will inspire me. I think, this sounds like a soundtrack to something. This would be an awesome soundtrack to this sort of scene. I think of that a lot. So music helps, but like I said, I can't have words. I can't have something I'm going to sing along with. So I do like a lot of classical music. When I'm doing Steam Patriots, there's a couple albums that I really like that are 1800s and colonial 1700s music that kind of gets me in the mood. I like sea shanties a lot too. And those fit the era. Yeah. Those fit the era. So
I've been listening. I've been waiting to hear one key word because he carries the thing around him when he travels. Apparently,
I do travel. I have banjo, will travel, and yes, bluegrass and old time music are fantastic. But they can't have words that I want to sing along with. So because I end up singing along and not writing. But yeah, that music helps me quite a bit. I don't think it's critical, but it certainly helps. So yeah, quiet space. I like music. I like walking and thinking too. I know Dickens did that a lot. So maybe it helped him.
You chew gum at the same time.
Walk, chew gum, and think. Dean, are you insane?
I know I'm demanding.
Who can do that?
But I think we have a new person in our room now. This is our friend John. John, hello. Hey. Welcome to the stream, my friend. How are you?
Hey, sorry. I'm good. Sorry about being a little bit late. Little Ann and I had to take the dogs out,
No worries, priorities. My friend. No worries. Better late than never. Just since you
I'm always late, so hey, it's all good.
If you want to take just a quick introduction for the potential newbies in the room who may not know who you are, and then we'll jump back into our subject tonight. Tell us who you are.
Everybody, I'm John Medic, editor at Silverline, currently working on continuity editing, most well known in the comic verse for Sniper and Rook, my self-published action-adventure title, a long-running action-adventure title, now under the Silverline banner.
Fantastic. And we're glad to have you.
Glad to
we
be
are
here.
discussing, I don't know if you were listening offline, but
I heard about the banjo, and I can attest to, yes, he travels with the banjo.
oh, that's amazing.
I heard some deliverance stuff going on.
You stop
the
it,
things we
John. I thought we were friends. Thought you
We
had
were
my
up
back,
to deliverance stuff.
John.
Wow, the secrets are all rolling out tonight, kids.
Yes, he drove over that river with a banjo.
Wow. All right.
Thought you were my friend, John.
I know, right?
I miss seeing my friends.
Scott made a
Look
pit
what
stop to the Chattanooga River.
Yeah.
Oh wow, Barb, share a little bit with us about your creative process in terms of getting into the zone, and are there levels where you know you're deeper into the zone where things are flowing? Because I know as an artist, for me, there's a level where I'm just working and I can, talk on the phone or listen to the radio or whatever, and then there are levels where nothing else exists but what's
That's
in front of me.
exactly, art-wise, and I have a different thing with writing. But art-wise, I like to have books on tape or audiobook, and sometimes I'll listen to CNN on the TV, which is next to my drawing board. But usually it's audiobooks that I listen to, and you're right. If it's just like, okay, we have some background here, we got to fill in and stuff like that. But if it's a really interesting page, I'll notice that everything else just kind of fades in the background, and I'm like so zoned in to the artwork that I'll look up. 4 hours have gone by, and I'm like, whoa, what happened? What happened there? And it's just like everything goes away, and you're just so. And your lines are working perfectly. You're not making any mistakes. It's such an awesome feeling because
It is.
You just know you're on point.
Have you correlated any kind of environmental triggers that can get you there faster? Because that's been one goal my entire career, is to find ways to get
To
that
trigger
zone.
Chasing that
trigger
high.
No, yeah, it's
It just
like
happens when it
chasing the
happens,
dragon.
right?
It just doesn't. Yeah, it just happens when it happens.
Yeah.
And it's usually on pages that have fewer panels or splash pages. I seem to like to be able to just fixate on the one thing, especially splash pages, where they're big and they're beautiful and there's lots going on, and you're just going at it, and you don't have to break your concentration from one panel to the next. Or else maybe if there's like 2 panels or something like that. But yeah, that's usually when I get in the zone.
That's understandable. And then since you do both, you write as well. What about writing now? Do you want total silence, nobody in the room, or can you write anywhere, anytime, no worries? How are you on that?
It's kind of strange the way that I do it. I work against the deadline much better because I'll tell myself, yeah, I know I need to sit down and get this pounded out. And it isn't until I'm going, this really has to happen, that I can really get my creative juices going. Down at Daytona, Roland was saying, Alex is penciling issue 3 of Divinity, and you've got the script for issue 4 done. You really should be thinking about the next arc. I'm like, oh my God, that's true. That's really true. So I started tossing out ideas. Where do I want it to go? Because I have a lot of ideas, but I have to figure which idea I'm going to utilize in this particular arc. I could go this way. I could go that way. So I have to pin one down. And then I find that I can't really think about it during the daytime. There's just too much going on. And I'm a bit of an insomniac, so it's after I go to bed at night and it's dark and I'm laying there and that's when I really turn stuff over in my head and going, okay, if this happens, then that has to happen. And I start to rough out a general concept of what the overall arc. So then yesterday I said, all right, this has got to happen. I have kind of an elevator pitch idea. Now I need to flesh it out a bit. And I sat down, and once I sat down and started writing, it just kind of explodes. I don't know. I think very logically. I think about, okay, I have A and M and Z. Now I have to fill in all the points in between. And as I'm sitting down and writing, how am I going to get logically from A to B and then B to C, and make it tie into M, and then get from M to Z.
Mhm.
And I'm a very logical writing. I think all the time, how would this happen in real life? If these guys are, for instance, they're on the run, and how am I going to open this scene? Well, how about let's start at a laundromat, because they've only got like 2 sets of clothing on them, so we're going to open in a laundromat. They're doing laundry, and this is where they're going to have the important conversation that I want them to have. And while they're having this important conversation, Divinity is behind them going through stuff she shouldn't be going through. And she pulls out eventually, while we're having the talking heads conversation up front, Divinity's in the background, and she pulls out a book out of Olivia's bag, and it happens to be 50 Shades of Grey. And so, yeah. So I wanted to liven up the talking heads panels in the laundromat by having something else to focus on as well, something a little going on in the background. And then from there we go to the next scene, and I go, okay, how do we get out of the laundromat to the next scene? And what I did in like 3 pages, I roughed out the general 4-issue arc. So this is where we're going. This is where we're going next. This is what's happening in this scene. This is who comes in. This is why this doesn't work. And I don't have any words yet. I just have what's happening. And so I plot it all out in a very rough, and I send it off to RA and Roland. And I know Roland hasn't read it yet because he hasn't responded. Neither is RA. So I sent it off. I says, this is my idea, the very, very rough out for the next 4 issues.
Mm-hmm.
Is this feasible? Do you think this will work? If not, then tell me now before I start refining it. And so that's basically how it works for me. I do a very rough out, and then I start refining it.
It sounds like you got the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plot roughed out.
And that you brought up something that I hope people watching and listening take note of. It's very important to give weight to a scene, especially if it's a grounded in reality storyline as yours is, to give the characters what I call busy work to do. Because if they're just standing and talking or sitting and talking, it has an air of artificiality to it. And if you'll think back to television shows you've watched that go on for multiple seasons, you'll often notice the better ones are ones where if it's a talking head scene, someone is often in the kitchen cooking or preparing food while the other person's talking, rather than just they're sitting across from each other on the couch. One person's blabbing, the other person's answering. So giving the characters business to do is important. And then a step above that is giving the characters business that actually advances the next stage of the story is even better.
Right.
So it makes talking heads time not just a pause between action, but an actual connective tissue between the set pieces. Because I think you're right. Many of us who write think in fireworks show style set pieces,
and there's plenty of that, but you gotta get from that to that point.
And the quote unquote filler, and that's not a pejorative, I'm really just using that as a mechanical description here. The filler, the connective tissue from this cool fireworks scene to this cool fireworks scene, the more you think about that and give it weight and maturity, the more powerful your shoot 'em up explosion fisticuff scenes will be, right?
Yeah, and that's where that's your opportunity to ask questions to make your audience think.
Yes.
Is the talking head scenes. Why are these people after us? Mm-hmm. Who are they? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do we need to do to escape them? Mm-hmm. And there's one part that I haven't figured out yet, and that has to do with technical tracking. So I need to do some research.
That's good.
Because I can't just say, oh yes, they tracked us through the internet, but okay, that's just kind of a really general. I need to dig a little bit into how this stuff works, because it's got to be authentic.
Which is good too, Barb, because if we're talking about inspiration and so forth, doing your research, there's nothing wrong with, of course, watching other shows, reading other comic books, seeing how other books or whatever do it, and getting some inspiration from that too. And the filler scenes, David Mamet said, I was watching something, he said it's a shame because he wrote, he's a playwright, of stage mostly, or what he's known for. He said it's a shame they can't smoke anymore, because that was a great way to give somebody something to do on the stage, because on a stage you're really limited with what your props are. It's time to think, time to contemplate. It gives them the beat, and then they can talk. In the comic book world, well, not Marvel, but we can have a cigarette or a cigar. Anyways, it's something to do. Something's happening. You always, even just a cigar. They cut the cigar, they trim the cigar. It's a prop in the scene. But
I actually learned that from reading the ElfQuest series, because what Wendy would do was that she'd have talking head scenes, and if you looked in the background, all the elves are doing shit.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And if you look close, you could go back years later and going, I missed that the first time around. Look what that person is doing in the background there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're doing this. She always had her characters in the background doing interesting things that you didn't catch the first time around or the second time around. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, a quick answer too, Barb, for a contemporary story as yours, where weapons are involved. They can always be cleaning their guns.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Looking for ammo.
One of the things, Barb, you had talked about realism. So I taught technology for 20 years, and so I pulled a lot of that stuff into Sniper and Rook because, as I was publishing originally, I was teaching, and that's became my passion. One of the things that I found, when I went back to reprint some of the books and tighten up some of my scripting, some of the tech that I had put in there is now so out of date. It's worse than Sandra Bullock's The Net.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Great movie.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Anything Sandra Bullock, I'm in. But yeah, if that's one of the things I've actually tried to pull back from a little bit on the realistic, because it will date the piece, so if it's something that you want viable for the long run, might not want to get into too much detail, because whatever is techie
that
today
would be too boring anyway.
Well, yeah, not to some of us tech geeks, we probably would like it, I go, oh cool, that's how they did it 20 years ago, as I'm looking back at my old books now, I'm like, that's old. There's one of my favorite movies of all time, Heathers. Has anybody ever seen that?
Yes.
Okay, so Christian Slater, Winona Ryder, Shannon Doherty, great movie. They couldn't make a movie like that today. Basically, they kill a bunch of people in high school, and the guy wanted to blow it up. If there was no Heathers, there would be no Mean Girls. Basically, is what it was. And the writer John Waters, he came up with their own slang for the movie, specifically for that reason, so that it wasn't typecast as an 80s, a 70s, a 90s. So, everything was its own, and it kind of kept it, as fresh today as it was when it came out in the late 80s.
That's a good observation too, John, because, you can invent, even in realistic based action adventures like yours, Barb, you can also invent things that sound plausible, and oddly enough you think this is going to sound cheesy, but if it's well thought out, which in your stories everything is, it can also give it a timelessness to it, because using real tech, as John succinctly pointed out, does date the piece. No matter how hard you try not to, it dates it.
When I went back to integrate into the Sniper and Rook collection #2, one of the short stories from issue 7 that was originally done in 2004, they basically got a data disk that needed to get analyzed and Okay, it's been a long day. Decoded.
De-encrypted.
De-encrypted.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, my brain's not firing on all cylinders, and if anybody sees me coughing and stuff, I don't have the Rona, but somehow I came home from Florida with bronchitis. So,
I'm
that's what
sorry.
this is.
I've got
I'm not pointing fingers, but yeah, no. So I got a couple days off
You
work.
can blame
I
my
think-
grandkids.
No, it's all good. It's family. But yeah, so
Well, you
basically,
did say you heard Deliverance.
so in 2004, the gent who wrote that drew the short story for me has them in front of a computer in 2004 with the big CRT.
Sure.
So as I was reprinting this thing in the last 5 years as part of like the second trade paperback, I'm like, that looks kind of out of place. And so basically I redid some of the words to say like, this disc couldn't even be recognized on a modern day system. I had to pull this thing out of the basement to get it to even recognize the allocation table format, and then it's de-encrypting. So I found ways to make it work, like as to why this big honking CRT, in like 2018. So
John,
How about Sniper's Ordnance? Is it out of date? I mean,
no, yes, no, and actually, I had a brand new idea on what I want to do with Sniper's Ordnance.
you should be using a Barrett M82. So what you should be using?
So I originally it was always an Uzi. I've always wanted an Uzi. I love Uzis.
It's a short-range weapon. He's not a sniper with a short-range weapon.
I know.
He's good with it.
It's Israeli made. They don't mess around. I'm like, okay, so and Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe had an Uzi.
Of course.
So going back to like 1983, there you go.
But neither does a Barrett.
What's that?
But a Barrett doesn't mess around either.
True. So
the
recently,
Barrett M82 is a top-of-the-line sniper rifle.
Well, and they're usually more like it's more handgun because it's short range. He's not really snipering too much, except for. There will be a story about that later.
Don't ask questions, Barb.
No. It's a great question though. But no. I'll tell you more about that another time. But yeah. So anyway, so it started going into like, okay, well, what handguns have I shot, and what have I owned, and what did I like? So it's like all of a sudden, okay, so now he's got like CZP10s because I dug those, and then like the IWI Masadas, and I'm like, okay, those are good. So nobody steal this concept because I just came up with this one recently. I'm gonna start switching up their ordnance for wherever their missions take them. Because how many movies do you see where they run out of ammo and then they go and they just grab a magazine off of like whoever they just took out? How are they all gonna fit? Okay, so like the CZs, they're checkmate. So if it's like an Eastern European bloc, they might be running something like that. So I'm gonna do like research as to where their mission is, what is being used by local military and MPs, the police force, and kind of have them adapt their ordnance to that.
Yeah, but that's thinking
9mm because 9mm is the most
9mm.
common round used in the world.
And that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
9mm everywhere.
Yeah.
Even though I like
AK-47s use 9mm.
Yeah.
So okay,
Dean, I was going to shoehorn a James Bond reference in when we're talking outdated tech. GoldenEye, when Natalia, yeah, when she goes in,
Miss Anatop.
no, a different character. No, and she goes in, she says, "I need 486 processors with a modem," and she wants to buy all the computers. Remember, because she needs to send an email to Boris. But yeah, talk about what was that 1995?
Yeah. It's pretty fun in many ways to watch computers in James Bond movies. It's great because it really dates them. But that's part of the charm, I think, too.
Yeah, with the radar in the Aston Martin and the boop boop.
Right? Yeah,
I love it. I
know it's a great.
So
thing.
we're getting off track here a little.
We are. Indeed.
We're talking about the creative, what inspires us, which
guns
and James Bond and technology and yeah. And other stories. Barb had a good comment about reading other stories and getting little tidbits from how they keep
Pick and choose.
Yep, keep the action going even when you have to have a talking heads or you have to have exposition, which should be avoided if you can. Avoid it if you can, but sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, don't start your issue out with talking heads.
No.
Or weather. The weather. Never start a story with the weather.
Never start. There's a dark and stormy night.
The rain slashed the window panes.
No.
Lightning crackled through the sky.
yes.
No.
There was banjo music everywhere.
Banjos everywhere.
Banjo
one of the things I do, and this was inspired by what Barb said, is I do what's called preloading, which is I will very often go to the long box, find some comics that I really like, pull them out and reread them, and often more so look at the art and get ideas on, okay, why did this inspire me? Sometimes you look at it and you go, that's not as good as I remember it. Other times you go, yeah, look at that transition. Look at that silhouette in between the two panels, and look at how that arm extends from that panel and takes you down to the next panel, and this and and the rendering and so on and so forth. So I'm curious, and I'm going to throw this to Aaron.
Yeah.
Do you do any preloading? Like, do you pull some of those old comics or an old DVD or Blu-ray and throw it in there to get sort of the imagery in your mind to sort of stoke the flames of creativity? Do you do any of that?
No, usually. So Gollings is a little different. Depends on what I'm writing. Gollings is very much emotion based for me. I know that sounds weird considering what the story is. So there are things where, so when I do a creative thing, I usually go for a walk, or I take a lot of baths. I have to kind of go into myself, and then kind of the idea is to fuel what would look right or be right. And then, of course, I will go through and look at some comics as I'm drawing to get references or whatever. It's funny. I don't do a lot of. I do props with conversations to a point. There's a point where I don't. It depends on what I want the conversation to be, and a lot of my talking. I mean, I did the thing with the fruit in the first issue. I think Dean read the first issue.
Yes, I did.
So that was more of a goofy introduction, giving them something to talk about. But it also depends on if I want you to pay attention to the content of the conversation, I won't give them props because that's distracting. I will actually entertain you with the background, and I would try to entertain you with the body motion. Like, I really try to look how people move and talk when they're talking, like their body motion, what they're saying, because that's the emotion behind it. I told before, I started practicing pauses in conversations. So I'll have somebody say something, and then I'll draw a panel with them saying nothing, and then they'll pick up the sentence again because people naturally pause. It also gives weight to what they're going to say. So I get much more into acting and how somebody would react to what they're saying, especially if it's like I just got done illustrating a conversation where these two people talking by a waterfall, and but the content of the conversation was kind of a big reveal. So I didn't want to distract them with doing a bunch of other stuff. I wanted you to focus on what they were saying. So I did a lot of them just kind of sitting and hanging around. I tried to really work on body language.
Right. That makes sense. I noticed that looking at your books. I noticed the blocking was good. And depending on what they're talking about, hand motions, posture, head posture, all that is in there. And it is noticeable.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. So I will look at most of the time I look at comics if I wanted strange enough, like how to draw rocks, or if I'm drawing a background, like what kind of books I want to put in the back or something. I have certain books that, like I have a Thor book because I like the way the guy drew clouds.
Yeah,
so
nice.
It was a good. I have a book done by what is the name of that book? It's done by Jim Henson. It's called The Time of Sands, or it was an old story. Let me see if I have it in my stack. Do I have it in my stack? No, I do not. I must have put it away.
It's right under the Dark Crystal book that you have.
Yeah, it was an old movie script he wrote, and somebody came back after and wrote a comic based on this script, and it was called The Sands of Time, or so this guy in the desert. You do really good stones and rocks in there, so I use it for that.
That's really cool. I have a
yeah.
suggestion for you, though. If you're going to do a ninja comic like you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
Ninja Assassin, dude.
Yes,
That
that's
movie,
what I. In fact,
movie,
his weapon. Yeah, his weapon is a big influence of what I'm going to do. And I had a ninja story that I wrote. I will actually bring stories back that I wrote in high school and redo them. Godly just read. I mean, this is like, so my creative space. I don't know if you've seen. This is the original Godlings, because this is the second time I've done the series. So the old stuff, it's very old. So it's all black and white. So the whole book has been done before. I'm redoing it. And so it's a little different creative. So I'm looking about what I've done, hitting the same story beats, but changing things I wanted to change. I changed entire scenes in there, stuff like that. So this is technically my second final draft. So I had a preliminary draft. But it's just a story I want to tell. But yeah, Godlings is a little different. One of the big influences on me is, again, Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's an anime. If you watch how that guy animates, he doesn't do props. He will mess with body language very much in that anime. So there's a lot of times where that show will talk about depression, and the main character Shinji's dealing with depression. So one trope he'll use as you go through the show is they'll go into like Shinji's mind. He's riding on a train, and it looks like it's sunset. It's like getting darker outside. He's sitting there very quietly on the train, and you're just talking to him. So he's usually, and there's no props. He's not doing anything. He's just sitting there talking to him, and usually his mind's talking to him, mental introspection and stuff. The same thing. He will use different looks on faces. Like he will actually use the fisheye lens on the face if the guy wants to look crazy or whatever. If you get a chance, I suggest if anyone wants to learn about using body language and getting emotions out, that's the original anime, and you can find it on Netflix. Evangelion's on Netflix. It's fantastic. And how popular it is, like they have theme parks of this in Japan. It is huge in Japan. It is like the Lord of the Rings of Japan. I think if anyone, even if you do not like anime, don't care, watch it. Just watch it. A fascinating show. It's one of those ones that I've never seen anybody do what he did and pull it off. So it starts out as a very sort of like trope anime. This is kind of what my Godlings did. Same concept, very trope, very, giant mechs are fighting these angels. And yes, he bases it all on Jewish folklore and angelic. So a little different from Japanese. And then it starts to degrade. So he starts out normal, and then he starts to break the characters and break everything down as you go along. Never seen it done before, and it's still the original series. There's 4 movies that came out. The original series is worth a huge influence on my work. But he's the one that really started getting me to focus on body language, the way people talk and stuff. That's why I started from that series. I'm like, that's fascinating. I want to do that. And then I tried that in Godlings. As far as the ninja stuff, I will watch ninja type things or whatever.
Ninja Scroll. We talked about Ninja Scroll and
Ninja games are a huge influence too. The Ninja Gaiden series. If you guys ever played Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, I played that.
I played the game.
Yep.
And that's a huge influence and stuff on ninjas. You want to get movement. I usually approach most of my scenes through movement. I want to mimic the movement and idea of what they're doing, how to explain it. Not a pose, but trying to get somebody in mid pose. So I'll watch a lot of Jackie Chan movies. Watch the Raid movies. Yeah, stuff like that. Watch how they fight. Watch how they move. I try to get that into mine. But I think also. So as far as creative, mostly walking to be by myself. I don't look at a lot of. It's funny. I'm not inspired by a lot of things directly. In other words, I don't see a lot of movies and anime. Like, I want to make that. They'll give me ideas for ideas I've had. I'm like, that's a cool idea. I should blend it into another idea. I've had people, like I used to work with somebody who, I remember he saw Prometheus. I was doing a comic book for him, and he came back and like, we're going to make everything like Prometheus. And I'm like, okay, don't do that. But he did it anyway.
Don't do that. There's a danger when you're overly copying something you love or tributing it or doing an homage, which is homage.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like, I think there's sometimes comic books. This is one thing I find kind of weird in comics, and maybe it's all the creators. I find it weird in comics that people do not take more chances in comics, considering how much money they supposedly make. This is the idea of doing something no one's ever seen before. I mean, even when people do independent comics, it's always superhero stuff, or it's like Marvel, DC stuff. Like, still most of independent, because that's what they've seen, is what they do. But when people do something different, or not even the subject matter, just experiment. I mean, like when Sin City came out, I mean, I wouldn't have seen art like Sin City.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen stuff done, like entire comics done in like abstract watercolors from like Europe and stuff I've never seen. I wish there was more experimentation, because it's ripe for experimenting and presenting something instead of just, well, if I copy Marvel and DC, I will get famous because I'm like them, and it's like that
No,
never
that's
works.
not
And
how it works.
people still chase that golden fruit. It never works. People still chase it. I mean, I remember when Bone first came out. Who knew that Bone would be popular? I mean, I remember he was pitching this little cartoon, but now it's like huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as like creative stuff, I always irritate my art friends, really, because I'm always like, I'm always on. They say I don't do warm up sketches. I don't keep a sketchbook. I just basically sit down and start working, and I irritate the hell out of my friends because they can't figure out how I can do it. Like
cool.
my friend Juan, it's like, you don't do warm up sketches. Like, no, I've never done that. I just sit.
I definitely have to warm up. And I want to mention, because you were saying, you know, you watch some anime stuff. There's a new anime for Star Wars called Star Wars Visions. Okay?
Yeah, I watched it. That's some good stuff.
Okay, the one called The Duel.
Yeah,
is supposed to be the best one, and from the reports, I haven't seen it yet. The reports I've heard are that it's so good that it's like you step back and you go, why can't they do more Star Wars stuff like this?
Yeah.
Because it's creative, it's filled with surprises, and yet it's just a classic throwback reference to a samurai duel, right? Which is in the same wheelhouse as the Jedi and so on.
I think that was the first one. I didn't catch all the names of it. I think it's the first one. Even the animation is very unique.
Yeah.
In that or whatever. And again, even the Japanese even push different animation techniques. I just think art being art, people have always, I think, split fine arts and commercial art into two fields. In other words, the experimentation of fine arts can't be translated into commercial art and vice versa. Like, you can't bring commercial art in the fine arts because you're not being experimental or projective. And I think that's crap. I just think that's stupid. I think you can take ideas from fine arts and put them into commercial art and vice versa. I think they feed off each other, and I'll make new things. So I think people who do that, like, we can't do fine arts or commercial art because it's not the same. I'm like, yeah, but that's how you make new stuff that people like.
Well, like, comic books opens the door to that better than many other commercial ventures.
Yes.
Because it is a singular vision, which is arguably why you get such great material in independent comic books. Notice I said independent.
Yes.
No more from the big two. I mean, that's But from the independent comic creators, you're getting something that is a person's soul, right? You're getting that if they're doing what they should be doing, because there's no budget, there's no target demographic. You don't have a bunch of bean counters that have decided, no, if we make this character like this, you're guaranteed to have this many people read it. You know?
Yeah, it drives me nuts. I don't like that. Even the way I write some of my characters, I have them in my head. In my head, one of my characters is slightly autistic. I just wrote her that way. I don't even. So I don't know if she comes off as that. She's asked a lot of questions. She's very curious. But in my head, she's slightly kind of. And I didn't do that for any sort of brownie points. I just thought that'd be a character. Yeah. Even in my ninja story, there's, as weird as it is, the ninja that I have that I'm thinking, and I won't go too deep into this, he is born without arms from the forearms down.
Okay.
There's a reason. So there's something I want to add to him and do. And I'm like, okay, I have this idea, whatever. But I actually, and that I like to write characters.
This sounds like you got the idea from an anime.
Strangely enough, no. I got it from an American.
Anime like that. I saw a trailer for an anime like that.
He did. This is one I got it from an old comic book called Kaboom, Anybody remember an American comic called Kaboom? No, okay.
Was that
Jeff
Jeff
Matsuda.
Matsuda? Yeah, Jeff
Mhm.
Loeb under Rob Liefeld's banner.
Yeah, there's some
that
really
arcade. It was awesome when he was doing
Yeah.
awesome entertainment.
Oh, okay.
he has some really cool ideas, and so there's a visual idea that I got from that comic that I want to work into it. And but I always like limitations on heroes. I always want to give my heroes
Yeah.
flaws or something to work through. That they're too perfect. That's why I always find it so fascinating when people write Superman right, because he's vulnerable. So how do you do that? When people do it successfully, I find it fascinating. But yeah, I always try to write interesting, weird characters. I mean, just look at my characters in Goblins; they're all weird and have backstories and stuff.
Yeah, the
and
worlds
so-
you're creating are different. Very different.
And I want that. And it's funny too, because people are like, well, it's a little too different. And then I see Saga, who has all sorts of aliens and creatures.
Come on.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, give me a break, you know.
Give me a break.
So I'm like, if he can do it there, then I can do it. Yeah, that's one of my things. I think creatively, from a creative standpoint, I wish people would, even in independent comics, like we'd see more things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something that no one has ever seen. Because you do it in comics, like, yeah, but I want to be successful. Like you probably have more of a chance of being successful with something weird and different if it hits big. I mean, if you do run of the mill, sure, you're going to get some looks and some stuff when you'll be successful. But Ninja Turtles is something that could either like hit or fail. And it hit.
Yeah.
And when it hit big. And so I think there's always a risk. But comics is the lowest risk possible. I mean, all you're really spending is time.
Yeah, it's time.
It
And I encourage people out there who are creating their own, and it's consistency, being as prolific as you can. And don't get discouraged if, people aren't jumping up and down over it right away. It takes time to build a brand.
It does.
Hey, can I segue here? Because
Sure.
you talk about a great brand. We've got KLS 1 through 4 available, right? That just got funded on Kickstarter. We've got a whole story arc from Silverline, Kalis, from Brent Larson, and then everybody out there that helped fund Kalis. Thank you very much. It was a successful Kickstarter campaign. And I want to also note that we are 10 minutes past the 1 hour mark. I know we started a little late, so that's okay. If we do want to transition into our free for all, we are allowed to do that, but I don't want to ruin our conversation about the creative process, what inspires us, where we get our ideas, what helps us get our ideas. And I didn't want to steamroll that, but I also wanted to take note of the time for everybody because we've been having a great conversation. And I didn't want to forget to thank all the supporters of Kalis out there. Yeah. And we got some comments over here on Facebook. I've been trying to go back and forth, keep an eye on that. Jose says, man, full house. Hi, all. Hello, Jose. Thanks for saying hello. Tommy says, look at all the whammers. Great to see everyone. Tommy was going to try to join us, but he's hanging out with family tonight. That's okay. Tommy does everything. We don't know when he sleeps.
He does
sleep. Hey, Tommy. Quentin says, good evening, Dean Scott. Everybody, Aaron, Barb, John, and I think Quentin's he's got an and there. I don't know, capitals and exclamation marks. You might have to explain yourself, Quentin. I don't know what's going on. Forgive me if I'm confused. But thanks everybody for comments, and all of our viewers. Don't hesitate to ask questions on our Facebook page or wherever you're watching this. Even if you're not watching this live, we really try our best to check back. We get those dings and pings and notifications that we got comments on our shows. We love comments. We love questions. It doesn't have to be about this particular show or the topic, but if you've got a question about comic books and pop culture and writing and arting and all those sort of things, throw them on there. We will do our best to answer them. We love feedback from our fans. If you've read one of our stories, you know what? If somebody out there wants to review one of our comic books and does a good job of it, it's a coherent review, well, we might even share it out there. We love that. We love the fan feedback because that's what the independent world is about the comic book family, all the artists. We're not so far removed by any means. We want you to join in. We want to hear the conversation and have you be part of the fun. Dean, you've been doing an awesome job hosting tonight. I don't want to take over, but I'll remind everybody we're talking about the creative process, is specifically what inspires us. We all are different. We all have different. We don't have a right or wrong, I guess. We can say what works for us. Aaron seems to always be a little different than everybody else.
My
yeah, and I love it.
Even as growing up in comics, I didn't, like I said, I read X-Men, and then it was Appleseed, Alien Legion. Let me see I was really in the Alien. I was really kind of in the weird abstract Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
was the original Ninja Turtles was a big one. Elf Quest, which Barbara worked on. So I was in the fantasy stuff. Superheroes never did it for me. So everybody's like, "You're a little different." I'm like, "Yeah." I remember when I was like Cupid, I would draw like these crazy alien creatures I designed. My teacher didn't know what to make. We tried to critique my pictures, like I don't know what to make of it, and I'm like sitting there going like, okay. And so I just always find it's always weird. Like I have a friend Tom who I've talked about many times with this. That I find it weird that you start with a blank piece of paper. You can draw literally anything you want. You can create anything. Your imagination is the limit. So to have somebody design like a green alien and a superhero is just like really? Like you can do anything you want. And it's just like, well, yeah, but I would draw Superman, but he has a purple cape this time.
Right.
And that's just me. I mean, I'm sure lots of other people like superheroes, but I'm just like, yeah, but you could really get your imagination. And the comics is like, people tell you like, there's no money to be had in comics. I hear it all the time. I was like, well, then why is everyone still repeating the same thing as no money? Like, go crazy then. If you're not going to get any reward for it, just do whatever you want.
I've got a question then. So this is the mainstream world. Do you think that's why Guardians of the Galaxy are so popular? And I know they weren't in the comic book world, in the printed form.
They were not as popular.
They were not. But
and the team that's in the movie was not the comic book team.
Right.
No.
But we've got a sort of talking tree. We've got a raccoon. Yeah. They're different, and I think they kind of did what you said there, Aaron. What can we do? We can come up with literally anything.
Like the raccoon and stuff. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I thought Rocket Raccoon was a cool guy. I mean, his original costume, he had like almost this Civil War general's uniform. It was really different. He had like the little and I remember like.
Was that in the first Hulk appearance? He
something
first
like
appeared
that.
in Hulk, I believe.
Yeah, he had a really different costume. Yeah.
And then I think it was like, 84, 87, he had the miniseries, I think Mike Mignola did. But he had like 4 issues from Marvel.
Mike Mignola, and then I think Scott, the guy who does I Hate Fairyland. Oh God, what is his name? He did a 3-issue series, I think after the movie came out.
Scott, when you talk about like veering from the norm, I always think of Sandman and Hellboy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which hit big. Yeah, The Crow, stuff like that. Yeah. So I mean, it's like, can it fail? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's
worth the risk.
There are a lot of long boxes out there full of a lot of 80s newsprint comics that are not TMNT or Cry for Dawn. That was known that made some eyes and made some money, but but like you said, Aaron, and Dean, give it a shot. I mean,
give it a shot.
It's just time and money. I've always said, when people said, "How much money have you spent on doing comics?" I'm like, you don't want to know.
No,
I say some people they smoke their money away. They gamble their money away. They drink their money away.
We draw it away in goofy stories.
I print comic books. I'm like,
we comic book our money away. I would be remiss if I didn't ask our friend John Martin, what puts you in the creative zone, my friend? How do you get in that mindset? Because you were saying earlier that you can multitask really easily, and a lot of us can't. A lot of us are like, we zone in and we're getting it done. What about you, man? Is it music? Is it quiet? Is it alone? Is it isolation?
It's whatever I feel like.
At the moment.
Yeah, because I can sit there, I can come in here in the studio and I can turn on a movie, watch a movie while I work, or, I can listen to music, or heck, my book idea that I kind of wrote up, I was listening to music when I wrote it. It just was like a gremlin beating at my head. I was listening to the music and it just kind of went onto the page.
That's cool.
Word vomit.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's neat. So really anything. Really, you can be in any environment and create.
If I'm feeling kind of sluggish creatively, all I do is go flipping through reference poses and things like that, or I look at art. But it really didn't take much. I mean, I don't really do. I may say I'm doing a warm up sketch, but I'm just doing the sketch because I wanted to do the sketch.
Right. Are there any
It's not
artists?
really a warm up sketch.
Are there any artists working today that they're kind of go to, like, I need to look at such and such just to kind of get inspired to draw today, or anything like that? Guys that you look like, you'll buy their work. You're in the store and you know they're doing a book. You'll snag it.
I feel so bad because I hadn't bought comics in so long, so I can't really say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
when I go in and the comics I buy, what did inspire me?
I keep some of the classics on hand. You know, the graphic novels.
My friends
know,
brought me
Wally
Blade of the
Wood,
Immortal.
Bernie
Yeah.
Wrightson, stuff like
When
that.
When I go looking at artists, I'm looking at their pencils and looking for something to practice inking.
Yeah.
Like Eddie Barrows or Cole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I recently rediscovered Joelle Jones. You guys are familiar with her work?
I've heard.
She did a particular run on, I think she's probably doing her own stuff now, but she did a run on Batman back in early spring of 2018, I think. It was called The Rules of Engagement. It was when Batman and Catwoman got together, got engaged, whatever. And she did a tremendous job with the art. It's kind of a blend of I'd say Adam Hughes. It's a little bit more stylized than Adam Hughes, but it has that weight. And she has a particularly good feel for facial expressions. So it's really cool. It starts out in the library at Wayne Manor, and all the Robins are sitting around, and Alfred is addressing them, and they're all kind of doing their thing and distracted, and one of the Robins is having a tug of war with Ace the dog, and they're all just kind of sitting around looking at each other, and Damien's just kind of reading a book and just rolling his eyes, thinking everyone's just a bunch of kids. And Alfred announces that that Bruce has proposed to Selena Kyle, and it's hilarious the way she draws the room's reaction. They do a silent panel where they're just staring, and then almost exactly the same panel next, and I think it's Damien. He goes, "What did you just say?" You know, so she's got a great grasp for drama and realistic environments and realistic human reactions in those environments. So, and I just was kind of going through a long box, just looking at stuff. To be honest, I was looking at stuff to purge because I've moved enough times where the long boxes are getting on my nerves, you know, like, do you really need all this, man? Do you really want to keep all this? And then inevitably I'll go through, this is really good. I can't throw that out.
You can just bring me a long box in November. Just bring me a long box in November.
Okay.
Yeah, I got rid of a lot of my comics. Not strange enough, everyone here, the type of art that inspires you creatively, is it more veered towards the cartoon abstraction or more towards the realistic side?
I grew up in the realistic school, so that for me it's realism, but that doesn't mean I won't read cartoons, especially if it's really strong.
Most of my stuff, mine, I guess you could see more artists, more like Frank Miller, Joe Mad, who did Battle Chasers. Some of my favorite artists. Steranko, he did some interest. Yeah, I like his stuff.
The light and shadow.
I tend to I don't know my terminology very well, but the more realistic. But then the art style that I picked for Steam Patriots is a little stylized,
but perfectly fitting.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And it really is.
That's what I wanted.
I have a real mix on
I like
my
the
collections.
Classic style. That's why Barb, I like the art. Yours is a classic comic book style. And I like that a lot. I like those. There's a lot of artists who can do. I don't know. Maybe Aaron, you've talked a lot about being innovative and new, but I do like that classic comic book character style, the drawing where they do have their comic book dimensions.
Actually, I think it is innovative and new because we've been just drowned in the image style.
Yeah.
I think throwing it back to, I wanted to go back to the basics.
There's an era, and again, I wish I had it in front of me. And forgive me for speaking in vagaries, but early 2000s, because Iron Man was my Marvel book that I would read. 2003, 4, 5, where I don't know, where his lats or delts or whatever they got the real long arms and the huge. I don't know where their arms were real long, their heads were little. I don't know who the artist was. I could look him up in that era.
Michelini?
It just got. What's that?
Was it Michelini?
I don't know. I need to look it up. It just
he would have been more like 80s.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Where their hands are real big, and it's almost a mix, a little bit of anime. I don't know.
A little bit of anime.
Yeah, their hands are gigantic.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, big feet. We used to call it big feet, big hands, big head.
Yeah, well, little head. I'm feeling like sometimes it was a little. What's that?
I thought that was Kirby.
Kirby was more square finger.
Yeah.
Everything was square with him.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
He did a lot of big feet too.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking the oversized feet where they literally look like cartoons.
Like hobbits?
Yeah.
They look like hobbits?
Hobbit feet, yeah.
It's a style. It's okay. It's too much for a lot of people.
And it's art. Good art is what you like.
Yeah, I got really used to that when I worked 2.5 years on Impulse.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Bart had those huge honking like sneakers.
Boats.
Yeah, I don't mind realism. Like Mark Schultz is a very realistic.
He's very good.
If we're talking art in general, I mean, I love like Winslow Homer and Norman Rockwell. That's what I like. That's nothing wrong with anything else. I'm sure. But that's what I gravitate toward.
Do you think that, strangely enough, I've often wondered if that's out of vogue? I think it's in vogue for certain people. I see a lot of comics who do realistic art not seem to attract much of the audience, but I see people do manga stuff attract much of the audience. Is it like just the stories, or is it the art too? I mean, and I even understand in comics, Scott McCloud argued that you see yourself more in abstract cartoon stuff than realistic stuff.
There got to be a point with comics, especially like Marvel, like a Greg Land and everything, where things just got too realistic.
Yeah,
and it lost that excitement. I mean, and that's no put down to like Mr. Land or anybody in that style, because it was very well done. It looked very realistic. I can't even make like a realistic stick figure, so I'm not poking at that.
Yeah,
but the realism took how they say like, when people are immersed in your story, you don't want to do something to jolt them out and bring them back to reality. When people are in a comic book, they need to be jolted into that alternate reality. And so if you're going from realism and looking at just exact realism, like that looks like a real human and that looks like a real human, it doesn't necessarily draw you in the way the crazy manga stuff does. Explosions everywhere and like crazy sound effects, and it's more exciting to look at.
There's a surrealism that I think the best comics display, where it's real to its own world, and if you get too far into photo referencing to the point of tracing, I think the closest to realism I ever saw do well commercially was Adam Hughes.
Or Alex Ross.
Yeah.
Or Alex Ross.
Oh, yeah.
But again, Alex is a wonderful illustrator, but almost in his storytelling pages, they're almost so sculpted and perfect that it loses a little bit of the motion, where it's almost like his covers are more awesome to me. They speak to me more so than his storytelling pages do. I was always drawn to not so much realism in the pure sense, but a surrealism like John Byrne. That was real, but it was real in a comic book way.
Yeah.
So
as far as
no crazy anatomy, no crazy out of proportion. It was traditional comic reality.
Like Neil Adams.
I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Neil Adams. Byrne. Who else would you put in there?
Jim Lee.
Jim Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a certain style to the realism.
Jim Lee embodied that 90s look where it didn't go so far over the top that it felt cartoony, but it didn't go so realistic that it felt stilted and cold.
And he was even more realistic, I think, with like his Punisher stuff before that. You know, and then it kind of grew more into the superhero-y, a little bit more defined, like you're saying, with the 90s. You know, the iconic X-Men look at that point. But that base was definitely there.
And I learned my lesson by experimenting as well. I did a 6-issue miniseries in the early 2000s for Atlas Comics called Phoenix, and they requested that I do my graphite style. And it was a fun experiment. But I won't do that again for storytelling because when I illustrate in graphite, it isolates and sculpts figures so that they lose some motion. I think Lee Bermejo does this a little bit too, where it's beautifully rendered, but sometimes it feels over-rendered, and over-rendered pages can sometimes lose a spontaneity and lose motion. So I quickly went back to what Scott was describing earlier as the classic comic book style. It's inked, it's colored, and it has a bounce. It has a life to it. And that's certainly not to disparage those who don't do that. But I found my wheelhouse that way by pushing the envelope and going, you know, that's cool for illustration and cool for covers, but I'm going to pull back away from that for internal pages and so on.
Internal pages, I do the same.
Style. Yeah,
I feel like sometimes people especially like George Perez is a master, you know, he's classic. But when I read some of George Perez's pages, it takes me forever to get through because there's so much packed in every panel. I'm like, George, I love you, but you like your eye sometimes doesn't know where to rest. It's like everywhere.
Negative space. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's like, dude, it's unbelievable as an illustrator, as a draftsman. Jeff Darrow does that too.
I can't read Darrow stuff. Yeah. I will not. I just will not pick it up.
My eye just bounces all over the map. What am I looking at? Wait a second. And where's Waldo? You know, that
exactly. Yeah. So I definitely think I simplify when I do covers and whatnot or whatever. I go a little more detailed. Like if you look at my actual, like when I do pinup illustrations of like Star Wars characters or whatever, my cross hatching, much more detailed I do in my comic. In comic, I simplify it much more down. But then again, I want you to read it and not so much sit there. I mean, it was always fun to marvel at the art, but I always thought the marveling at the art would be for like pinups or whatever, and the stuff in between just kind of get you through the story. There was a fine balance. I mean, if you slow your reader down, you take them out of the story. You want to keep that pace, and if you break that pace, you can sometimes lose your reader.
Yeah, the art can get in the way, and speaking of that, I feel like I'm getting in the way. Scott, are we in the wrap-up zone?
We are it is 9:30 here on the eastern side of the United States. We should start wrapping up. We have sort of been talking about what keeps us moving and what how we get in the zone. It's all right. This is typical for at least for the Wednesday show. We are a stream of consciousness, and we've had a full house, and it has been awesome. I'm going to double check real quick. Thanks, folks, throwing up comments on the Facebook page. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever else you're watching, we appreciate it. All of you who supported Kalis on Indiegogo and Kickstarter, thank you so much. This is our first foray into Indiegogo. I think we're going to continue to do that once we have stories complete. Indiegogo lends itself well to the trade paperback or the graphic novel style of buying a bigger book there. Thank you again to the Daytona Beach Comic Convention for all of your love that we got a couple weeks ago there down in beautiful sunny Florida, right? John, Barb,
Hot.
John, my goodness, rainy the entire time. Daytona Beach, we know you couldn't do anything about the weather, so we won't hold that against you.
And I apologize to all my fellow attendees who I gave my granddaughter's cold to.
Oh, no.
See, that's why as his only child, I always say share is like the worst swear word. Don't use the word share. Don't use the word early. But yeah.
She
John,
snotted on me, so I snotted on everybody else.
You can set your watch. You can set your watch to the rain in
to the
Florida.
rain.
At 3:00 on the dot, it starts raining.
And it was a rainy, beautiful time in Florida, and we can't wait to come back. And we've had our ticker going along the bottom there of appearances. And everybody out there, keep an eye on our social media pages, please. Like, follow, share, subscribe, share. You know what to do with social media, so you get all of the updates where you can see Silverliners. I even saw. Did I see Peter Clinton? Is he coming to the States or something? Or I'll have to look that one up. But if you're in England, you can go say hello to Peter Clinton. But he might be at a convention. We've got West Coast, we've got East Coast. Don't forget, we have three live streams. Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Make sure you jump in on those, and always throw your comments up. If you're wondering what's next for all of you Kickstarter supporters, if this is your first time supporting a Kickstarter campaign, it takes a few weeks for them to release the money to us. I say us, I mean to Roland, and who created the campaign, and for him to get everything set. What does not take long is him getting things in the mail, because these comic books are done. They're ready to go. So if you haven't seen your email from Kickstarter, go check. Make sure you check your spam or your whatever folder. You should have an email from Kickstarter, or go log in. Make sure you've responded to that survey. They call it a survey, because they need to double check on your address. They need to make sure if your name is in anything, we want to make sure it's the correct name. So go double check. But you'll have those in your hands soon. And that's all I have. We have had a great show tonight, folks. We also have a podcast, so don't neglect to listen to those. And am I forgetting anything, everybody?
We got always we got to leave with our motto.
Okay. Make mine. Good night, everybody. See you guys. We'll see you later. Have a great night.
Bye.
Good job, everyone.
Woohoo.
Oh, wait.